What is up, everybody? Mark on the mic here, joined by my main man, Mr. Dan Staton from Elk Shape. Going to talk today about hydration and hydration supplements, best practices, some definitions. And man, Dan, number one, thanks for joining me. You're kind of my guy when it comes to, sports, nutrition, sports injuries. I call you like when I'm on my way home and I'm like, Dan, I got this going on, and you remind me every time that, Mark, my name, there's not an MD before it, but then I just choose to ignore that, and then I ask you the questions anyway.
That sounds about right, and the frequency goes up the older you get.
Yeah, there's been a couple more phone calls the last couple of years. Dan, hydration, extremely important. Our bodies are approximately 65% water. Salt is very important to us, our bodies, our well-being as well. The more I look into hydration, it's actually kind of a confusing topic, and there's even some, you look up maybe one thing on the internet and it'll say this, you look up something else, it says that. I feel there's a lot of common themes there, among the topic, but what are your thoughts?
Oh, it's obviously the most sexiest topic. You'll get a lot of people listening in just based on the title alone. But for real, it's all fun and games until you're on an extended hunt and you start losing, your cognitive abilities to make fast, important decisions, which is kind of what hunting's all about, or the performance. You start cramping. There's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong when you're not properly hydrated. So, if we could just do like a quick 10-minute talk overview, I think people could leave with some food for thought, and then they could probably head to the field just a little more armed and ready to tackle the mountains and perform their best.
Absolutely. No, I think that's perfect. And you bring up a good point. It's like, oh man, talking about hydration, maybe not as sexy as, some high speed piece of kit, but you preach this a lot, Dan. You yourself are your highest speed piece of kit. You got to take care of yourself. You think of it in the context of planning a hunt. I plan hunts based on my personal access to water. I plan my hunts sometimes based on the animal's access to water. So, it really is critically important.
Yeah, it is. And I was really educated on this a while back. I did a podcast with a gal who specializes in working with triathletes, endurance athletes. And she had never worked with a hunter before. Her name is Brooke. She's out of Bozeman. And she said, come to think of it, hunting is an endurance sport. If you think about it, it's a lot of zone 2 hiking with a rucksack on your back for days on end. And you probably don't have the best food options when you're back there or access to water. And so a lot of our hunting decisions we make based around water, and so do the animals. And so why wouldn't we just kind of put a little more forethought into how can we make sure that we are not running into the cramps? The cramps is like the number one thing I hear from guys is like, hey man, and this is when you're compromised, is when you have cramping that won't go away, especially in the calves, the hamstrings, the quads, or even when you're trying to sleep. That's the worst. Cognitive function, you're just not clicking. It could affect your digestion, which people don't think about, nerve impulse, temperature regulation, and ultimately your performance. So all these things matter to me, matter to you. Let's dive in.
All right, Dan. So before the hunt, what do you feel like a person should be doing as far as making sure that they're optimally hydrated so they're starting off in a good place?
Yeah, I think the precedent needs to be set with, are you somebody who sweats a lot? I'm not talking about your sweat composition. We could probably address that real quick, but not everybody has access to a sweat test, but that is such a thing where you go in, it's not a treadmill test. They put something on your arm. Doesn't take longer than 20 minutes. And then they look at your sweat composition, and essentially it's how salty is your sweat. Then you look at your sweat rate. Everyone's a little different. I give this example all the time. One of my best friends helped me pack out a bull last year. and we were hiking up in the morning to go get the last load. It was cold. I was wearing a puffy the entire hike up, 2,000 foot gain, and I was comfortable in a puffy.
I mean, and that's
Now this
crazy,
guy,
right? At least that's crazy to me.
I mean, it was like literally high 20s, and I mean, I don't sweat. I don't have a high sweat rate, and my sweat's not very salty. I guess, and that's all genetics as far as the sweat, the saltiness of your sweat. You can't really change that sodium concentration in your sweat. It is what it is based on your genetics. But Tyler, my best friend, he's in a t-shirt. It is soaked in sweat. He's wearing, like, his hat is getting soaked in sweat. And he's literally a captain, firefighter, CrossFit, fit dude, same age. It's not like I'm in better shape. It's just that dude has a higher sweat rate. I don't know his concentration, meaning I don't know how salty his sweat is. I don't think he knows either. And a lot of your listeners don't know. And I think it's something to look into, especially if you're susceptible to some of those compromising cognitive functions, cramping, things like that, because it doesn't matter if you just drink fluids. It's what's in your fluids. And there's a way to measure that and kind of like literally be surgical on how much salt you need to drink per milliliter. Like, so if you and I did the sweat test, you might be losing 200 milligrams of salt per liter. Whereas I may be losing 2,000 10x milligrams of salt in the same session. So that doesn't mean I need to drink basically more fluids than you. It just means that I need to have the right mixture with the right salt and the right type of salt. Have I lost you yet, or are you flowing?
No, I'm following. You know, I listened to that podcast that you did with Britt from Grit Sports Nutrition, and I'm glad you're leading with some of this, because one of my big takeaways was like, okay, you and I will probably likely talk about some best practices, some baseline things that a person, you know, may want to do, be thinking about, but it really is so individual. And like you said, I don't know my number. I'd be very curious about it, because I think, honestly, like, I think I am a sweater. Like, I've been hunting with other people. I'm like, you're not sweating? Like, I'm sopping, you know, and then, like, you know, my hat's the one that looks like a salt block. You know, I've sweated through my backpack straps. Like, the outside of my pack straps have salt on them, right? So, I mean, like you said, that's individual, so you can come up with some things, but a person that's probably actually a very good, you know, data to know for yourself.
Yeah. And then honestly, like, look at where you're going hunting. If, you know, a lot of your listeners should have an idea of what the environment will be, the climate, potentially the humidity, the altitude, a self-reflection of really what is my fitness level going into this hunt, the type of clothing you wear. I mean, like, the list goes on, but those all can affect, you know, how much your sodium or you're losing through sweat and things like that. So for me, I look at a lot of my elk hunting, and it's not very humid, thank God, nothing like Wisconsin, but it is high altitude, and I don't live at 8, 9, 10,000 feet, but the elk do. So that's new to me, and I'm as fit as I can be, but that's still, like, I have decisions to make based on, you know, if a front moves in, the humidity will change the climate. And then ultimately what kind of clothing system I'm wearing, and then what time of day I'm having to do what. You know, if it's middle of the day, September, and I decide this is a great time to put 80 pounds on my pack and hike in a spike camp, I'm going to lose a lot more fluids. I'm probably going to lose a lot more salt. Now, there's other things you lose as well that Brooke pointed out to me. I remember her telling us, like, you definitely, like, people think about potassium, like, oh, eat bananas because they got potassium, calcium, magnesium. She made it abundantly clear that those really aren't a priority when you're losing fluids and salt. It's like you'll get those from food, but the thing you won't get enough from food is the sodium citrate. And she said, and I remember this distinctly, to look on the back of your supplement labels, like maybe you're taking, like I take Wilderness Athlete, Hydrate and Recover in the backcountry. Look on the back of whatever you're taking and make sure it's citrate, not chloride. Sodium chloride's table salt, and it does not, it gets trumped by sodium citrate. So sodium citrate is what you want to look on your ingredients, and you have to have something like that to be backfilling as you're going, and it will make a difference. Maybe you don't take the sweat test, but you at least have the things available that you need to make sure that if you do start feeling some cramps or you start feeling sluggish and your decision making's poor, dude, time to sit down, get some water, and get some supplements backfilled, and just kind of chill and see where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was an interesting distinction that I wouldn't have, like, I would have read the back something that said sodium, great, salt, I'm in, right? But that distinction between the citrate and the chloride is very useful, and it sounds like the citrate is going to be more gentle on your GI system, which I don't know about you, Dan, but when I'm in the field or in the backcountry, I'm looking to mitigate any GI issues, if possible, and that's certainly a way you might be able to do that.
I feel that, man, and I know that when Brooke was telling me that, like, look, man, you got to replenish your fluids, and there's a volume of fluid that you need to take in, and it just doesn't change. So once you've cracked the code and you're like, okay, I need to have 200 milligrams per liter, all your concoctions can have that going forward. And then you can kind of just, estimate how much sweat is happening. Right now, I personally don't know my number. I can just go off historical data that, man, I've never really cramped. I haven't had too many things, but I do lose some water when I'm hiking and it's sweaty. So I just got to replenish. But if you're somebody like Tyler, my good friend Tyler, and you lose a lot of water, you darn sure better make sure that you have some sodium citrate mixed into that equation, and then just kind of monitor it. But I mean, we've all ran out of water on a hunt. We've all done it.
It's the worst.
It's just a bad idea, and it really can affect. And honestly, water a lot of times where I elk hunt, it's just a pain in the ass to get to. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it requires I got to descend 1,500 feet, go get that water. Do I really want to do that, or do I want to just tough it out? Well, you can be tough, but we're both, we're in our 40s. You barely, just want to point that out. And
thank you.
Sustainability on a hunt, I really like to hunt that back end as hard as I did in the front end, because I've figured out the animals a lot more, and the hunting pressure and the scenario and the feed, and I just want to be firing on all cylinders on the back end of the hunt, because that's when the noose gets cinched.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you don't want to be, not able to capitalize on all that knowledge that you've earned over the week. And man, I agree. I'm not nearly even remotely close to good a shape as you, Dan. So for me, nothing is as demoralizing as losing 1,500 feet of altitude to go get a drink of water, or to even haul that water all the way back up.
Yeah, it's so unmotivating to do that. And you're spending, we have commodities in the backcountry, and it's just time and energy. So you're actually going to burn both commodities to get water, but kind of funny, you need water. So water alone, find some supplements that have that sodium citrate, mess with the ratios, maybe the summer. You're listening to this now, maybe a little bit of time, do some like experimentation, or find a sweat test center near you and go get it. It does not involve anything more than 20 minutes of your time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what we keep harping on it, but really that is like a baseline number that is going to be extremely useful, because like you and I actually, let's say we both are losing a ton of fluid, and I think we covered this, but I think it warrants just reiterating, but I might be losing a lot more salt than you. Right? So it's like so you might actually just need to replenish with more water. I might need water with the supplement. So, and there's, or vice versa. You might be, then there actually is, there could be some issues with, drinking too much water too. So it really is a balancing act. As I was kind of doing some research prior to this podcast, it's like when you go into a hunt, as best I can tell, it's like, you want to be topped off. You want to be optimally topped off wherever that is for you. You don't need to be over the top or consuming more water than you actually need, because that could be detrimental. As you consume these fluids, you are losing some of those important minerals like salt. You're going to lose it through your sweat, your breath, your urine. So if you're only consuming a ton of water and not, replenishing those electrolytes, that's going to be a problem. So it really is an interesting balancing act. One thing that I think is interesting to point out too, better than nothing, but a lot of quotation mark sports drinks, electrolyte drinks, actually don't have that much salt in them.
Yeah, believe it or not, kudos for their marketing. Incredible. But at the end of the day, I would be looking more of like some sort of powder that I can add in my Nalgene that has the proper sodium and maybe a little bit of potassium and magnesium chloride, but definitely the sodium citrate. And then also there's like energy gels and things like that endurance athletes, triathletes have been utilizing. Those have things in there as well, and they're easy to take in. They pack real well. But no, we're definitely not going to be packing in Gatorade or Powerade. It's just more of a marketing thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I've tried a variety of electrolyte supplements over the years, and I guess one thing that I do like about them, number one, they don't really weigh a whole lot. You're getting some things that are definitely essential. And I find that I actually drink a little bit more water when I've thrown that in my water bottle. Like I've got some in this one, right? Case in point right here, right now, right? And then you're kind of killing two birds with one stone there too.
Yeah, I definitely will drink a lot more if I have a mix in there for sure. So it's just kind of every day, and even like out of the mountains right now, like I'm a 2 scoop a day, hydrate, recover. It makes it taste good. I'm more apt to drink water. And, people always, even those like people that want to lose weight, there's a handful of them. The biggest thing is, the first thing is like, what are you taking in calories right now through liquids? Let's stop doing that. The second biggest thing is like, how much water are you drinking today? And then you find out that they struggle to hit 50 fluid ounces of water a day. And I'm like telling you, all you adults out there should be over 100 fluid ounces of water a day. That's baseline. And can be really tough to do that. So that's at home with convenience, with refrigerators and running water and a warm bed and vehicles. How's that going to go for you in the mountains when none of those conveniences are there? So start doing it now.
Yeah. No, I like it, Dan. I like it. Yeah, so many things can affect your hydration levels. The climate, how warm it is, altitude. So some of that's going to be specific to where you're at. What are your thoughts on, I know the supplement that I threw in this bottle, it's got a little bit of sugar in it. Like if I'm going to be active, that doesn't really bother me. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's fine, especially while you're hunting. I think that's a no-brainer, assuming, out west style hunting. Yeah, you just can't get enough calories in while hunting. I know I certainly can't. Like I literally have never cracked the code. And I've done upwards of 3,000, 4,000 calories a day. And it's just not enough. And it's very difficult to eat that much and hunt your best, which you probably understand that. And a lot of your listeners will, but eating can be a chore. And then if you make the mistake that I made last year and you pack all this cool food and then you've come to find out you don't really love it, and you'll start seeing which pieces of food you are like, oh, I've been avoiding that. And that's all I have left in my food now. So this year I'm going better food, better variety. So I look forward to eating things and not the same mundane food.
No, that's really, yeah. If you stay out there long enough, those things that you've avoided, they come back to haunt you because, like you said, that's all you have left, and then it's staring you right in the face. I always hope, I'm like, man, maybe I can get to a point where hopefully I, am successful, and then I can avoid that last bag of just the leftovers from each other day of food. No, cool, Dan. Any other parting thoughts as we think about hydration?
Yeah, no, I think we covered it. I think, like I said, it wasn't the sexiest topic, but if we got you to stick around to the end, I think we got you to think, and we just wanted to see you have more success. And I think this is one way to do that gets overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, you brought up some of the, the backcountry food and nutrition and things like that. So we might have to chat down the road on some of that stuff too, because I think that's it's, I don't know, like I find it actually extremely interesting. So I think that'd be a fun one to talk about.
You say the word, I'm there.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Dan, for joining us today. Boy, drink early, drink often, stay hydrated, and, make sure you're getting enough salt intake. Maybe get your salt levels tested, your sweat levels tested, and drink up. Have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one, everybody.